Wow, some pretty heavy stuff this time around, huh? We've got reports on some wild weather oil spills and even the possibility of a sixth mass extinction.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, for sure.
I know, right? Like, it feels like every time we turn around, there's some new alarming headline.
Well, it is important to look at these issues together, because they are all interconnected in some pretty fascinating and honestly concerning ways.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a giant puzzle. And each piece makes the overall picture a little scarier. So let's start with something that I think we all can relate to, at least in some way, the weather. You sent over this forecast for New Year's weekend, and, well, let's just say it's not looking too festive.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Tornadoes, hail, high winds across the south. It sounds like Mother Nature's decided to ring in the new year with a bang.
Yeah, it does seem a bit extreme, doesn't it? And it's already causing major disruptions, too. Almost 900 flights were canceled just on Thursday because of it.
Wow, that's crazy. But so is this just like a freak occurrence, or?
Well, here's the thing. This isn't just a one-off event. We're seeing this pattern of extreme weather events happening all over the globe, and climate change is a major factor.
So it's not just bad luck. It's like climate change is turning up the dial on these natural disasters.
Exactly. It's like a feedback loop.
Hmm.
Human activities release greenhouse gases, which warm the planet, and that leads to more extreme weather events. And then those events can have devastating consequences for ecosystems and human societies.
Right, it's all connected. And speaking of devastating consequences, let's talk about that oil spill in Russia's Black Sea polluted coastlines, dead dolphins. It's just horrific.
It is. The spill originated from two Russian tankers that were damaged during a storm in mid-December, and now thousands of tons of heavy fuel oil have already contaminated miles of coastline.
It's heartbreaking to see the images of volunteers trying to clean up the mess, especially when the government's response has been so inadequate.
Yeah, the lack of a coordinated and robust response from the Russian government is a major concern. They've only designated it as a local emergency, which really limits the amount of help they can receive from international organizations.
And didn't Putin blame the captains for sailing without authorization? It feels like an attempt to shift blame away from the larger issues here.
It does raise some questions about accountability, for sure, but it also kind of underscores the inherent risks that come with our continued reliance on fossil fuels. These spills happen, and they have far-reaching consequences.
Definitely. So we've got climate change fueling extreme weather, which in turn leads to disasters like this oil spill. It's like this vicious cycle.
Exactly, and unfortunately, it's a cycle that's only going to intensify if we don't start making some serious changes. But that's a topic for another time.
Okay, so we've talked about some pretty heavy stuff already, but
Yeah.
you also sent over some info about a potential second Trump presidency and its potential impact on climate action. And the outlook, let's just say, isn't exactly sunny.
Right. Well, it is a bit of a mixed bag, honestly. There are definitely some valid concerns based on the Project 2025 roadmap drafted by his allies, but there are also some glimmers of hope as well.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are some of the specific concerns outlined in the report?
Well, one major concern is the proposed budget cuts to key environmental agencies like the EPA and the Department of Interior. Less funding means less capacity to enforce regulations, manage existing programs, and promote clean energy initiatives.
Yeah, that sounds like a huge step backwards. And what about the Paris Agreement? Didn't Trump pull the U.S. out of that once before?
He did, and he's already stated his intention to do so again if he's reelected, which would further isolate the U.S. from international efforts to combat climate change and potentially weaken its influence on other major emitters.
Not exactly a recipe for global cooperation on this issue. But you said there were some positive signs as well, right?
Yes, it's important to remember that progress on climate action isn't solely reliant on federal policy states. Cities and businesses are continuing to move forward regardless of what happens at the national level.
So you're talking about initiatives like renewable energy projects, sustainable transportation, and carbon reduction goals.
Right, exactly. And we're also seeing some bipartisan support for clean energy incentives, particularly those that are included in the Inflation Reduction Act.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading that legislation has already spurred billions of dollars in clean energy investments and created tons of jobs.
It has. And that economic momentum is likely to continue, even if there are attempts to undermine the legislation. The clean energy sector is growing rapidly, and it's becoming increasingly clear that it's not just good for the environment, but for the economy as well.
So despite some potential roadblocks at the federal level, there's still reason to be optimistic about progress on climate action.
Absolutely. It's a complex landscape, but the transition to a cleaner and more sustainable future is underway, driven by a combination of technological advancements, market forces, and grassroots activism.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
But okay, now let's address the elephant in the room, the possibility of a sixth mass extinction. Kind of scary thought, right?
It's a daunting topic for sure, but one we need to confront head on. The scientific evidence is overwhelming. We are experiencing a rapid decline in biodiversity, and it's driven primarily by human activity.
Right, and that's what's known as the Holocene Extinction.
Right, exactly. It's the ongoing extinction event of species during the present Holocene epoch, mainly due to things like habitat destruction, pollution, climate change, and other human-induced factors.
It's hard to grasp the scale of it. I read somewhere that we're losing species at a rate hundreds, even thousands of times faster than the natural background rate. That's terrifying.
It is. To put it into perspective, scientists estimate that we're losing around 1 million species right now, and many of them could disappear within decades if we don't take drastic action.
Wow, 1 million species.
That's tough.
It's hard to even comprehend. That really highlights the urgency of the situation.
Definitely. The loss of biodiversity has far-reaching consequences, not just for the natural world, but for human societies as well. We rely on healthy ecosystems for everything from clean air and water to food and medicine. The collapse of ecosystems could have devastating social and economic impacts.
So with everything we've discussed so far, the extreme weather, the oil spill, the political debates, and now the Holocene extinction, how does it all tie together?
That's the key question, isn't it? And the answer is that these issues are all deeply interconnected. Climate change, driven by our reliance on fossil fuels, is exacerbating extreme weather events. These events, in turn, can trigger disasters like this oil spill we talked about, which further damage already fragile ecosystems. All of this contributes to the acceleration of biodiversity loss and pushes us closer to the brink of a sixth mass extinction.
It's like this domino effect. Each piece knocks over the next, leading to a cascade of consequences.
Exactly, and understanding this interconnectedness is crucial because it really highlights the need for systemic change. We can't address these issues in isolation. We need to fundamentally shift our relationship with the natural world and embrace a more sustainable and equitable way of living. It's a tall order, but it's essential for the long-term health of our planet and for future generations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, and I think it's safe to say that there's a lot to be concerned about, but it's important to remember that there's also hope, and there are things we can all do to make a difference. And that's what we'll be diving into in our next segment.
Right. It's not about getting overwhelmed by the scale of the problem, but about recognizing our own agency and taking action no matter how small. It all adds up. So stay tuned. It can feel kind of overwhelming, right?
Definitely. I mean, these are global issues we're talking about,
Yeah.
with really complex causes and potentially disastrous consequences.
Yeah.
It's hard not to feel a little bit, well, helpless sometimes.
Yeah, I get it. But it's important to remember that knowledge is power. The more we understand these challenges, the better equipped we are to find solutions and take action.
Okay, that makes sense. So speaking of taking action, what can we as individuals actually do to make a difference? It's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom and feel like our individual actions don't really matter.
Oh, they absolutely matter. Every choice we make has an impact. From the food we eat to the way we travel to the products we buy, it all adds up.
So you're saying that even small changes in our daily lives can actually make a difference?
Exactly. Think about it. If everyone committed to reducing their carbon footprint, even just a little bit, the collective impact would be significant.
Okay, so what are some specific things we can do? I know people talk about reducing energy consumption, driving less, eating less meat, but do those things actually move the needle?
They do. Those are all great examples. Reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, adopting a more plant-based diet, supporting sustainable businesses, advocating for stronger environmental policies, these are all actions that contribute to a healthier planet.
So it's about being more conscious consumers, making informed choices, and using our voices to demand change.
Precisely. And it's also about supporting the organizations and individuals who are already working tirelessly to find solutions. There are scientists, activists, policymakers, entrepreneurs all over the world who are dedicated to creating a more sustainable future.
That's inspiring to hear. Sometimes it feels like we only hear about the problems, but there's so many people out there working on solutions.
Exactly. And by amplifying their voices, supporting their work, and becoming active participants in the movement for change, we can create a ripple effect that extends far beyond our individual actions.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into these interconnected issues, we want to leave you with a sense of hope and empowerment. The challenges are real and the stakes are high, but we have the knowledge, the tools, and the collective will to create a more sustainable and just future.
Absolutely. Remember, every action you take, no matter how small, can contribute to a healthier planet.
Okay.
It all starts with awareness and then taking that first step towards positive change.
If you enjoyed this deep dive into these crucial topics and learned something new, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking explorations. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep diving deep. So we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff today, from extreme weather to oil spills to the possibility of a sixth mass extinction.
Yeah, we have. It can be kind of hard to process, you know?
Yeah, it definitely can. I mean, these are global issues with complex causes and potentially catastrophic consequences. Sometimes it's hard not to feel a little overwhelmed by it all.
I get it. But it's important to remember that awareness is the first step towards finding solutions.
Okay, so let's talk about solutions then. What can we as individuals do to make a difference? It's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom and feel like our individual actions don't really matter.
Oh, they matter a lot, actually. Every choice we make has an impact. From the food we eat to the way we travel to the products we buy, every little thing adds up.
So even small changes in our daily lives can actually make a difference.
Absolutely. Think about it. If everyone made a conscious effort to reduce their carbon footprint, even just a little bit, the collective impact would be huge.
Okay, so what are some concrete things we can do? I know people always talk about, reducing energy consumption, driving
Right.
less, eating less meat, but do those things really move the needle?
They absolutely do. Those are all great examples. Reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, adopting a more plant-based diet, supporting sustainable businesses, advocating for stronger environmental policies. These are all actions that contribute to a healthier planet.
It's about being mindful consumers, right?
Hmm.
Making informed choices and using our voices to demand change.
Exactly. And it's also about supporting the organizations and individuals who are already working hard to find solutions. There are scientists, activists, policymakers, entrepreneurs all over the world who are dedicated to creating a more sustainable future.
That's inspiring to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it feels like we only hear about the problems, but there are so many people out there working on solutions.
Exactly. And by amplifying their voices, supporting their work, and becoming active participants in the movement for change, we can create a ripple effect that extends far beyond our individual actions.
So to wrap up this deep dive into these interconnected issues, we want to leave you with a sense of hope and empowerment. The challenges are real, and the stakes are high, but we have the knowledge, the tools, and the collective will to create a more sustainable and just future for everyone.
Right. It's not about getting overwhelmed by the problem, but about recognizing our own agency and taking action no matter how small. It all starts with awareness and then taking that first step towards positive change.
Well said. If you enjoyed this deep dive into these crucial topics and maybe learned something new, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking explorations. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep diving deep.